Welcome back to another edition of Midlife and Thriving, where we are guiding midlife women back to the most important relationship of their lives with themselves through the art of self-care, ensuring that through their thriving, they are able to take their brilliance out into the world with energy, with confidence, with joy, and make a difference. And joining me today is the lovely Evie Kathrapti, who is a career and change strategist. Evie, great to have you with me today.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, always a pleasure. We do other things together anyway, and so it's great to have you as we look at this topic around high achievers and self-care, because certainly in my experience, what I found more often than not is that the women who I know or who I've worked with who are high achievers really struggle with self-care. It's just like it never ever seems to get in like the top three things that I have to do. Their work is very demanding, and even if they think about self-care, it is literally a thought that comes and then leaves. And then the worst thing is from that, what usually ends up happening over a period of time is that they burn out. And I have spoken to high achievers who have burned out not once, not twice, but maybe 3 times, right? So it just seems to be even that they know that this is not a healthy way to go. This is kind of a cycle that they get caught in. And of course, as a career and change strategist, I know that you're speaking to women all the time about their careers and not just about coming back into careers after periods of being out, but where are they in their careers and what do they want next for themselves? So I'm wondering, in your experience, what patterns do you see among high achievers when it comes to balancing their ambition with self-care?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that, the relationship that is most important is the one that is always left behind or is not really understood at all. I mean, I love how you are framing this because, yes, the relationship with ourselves is the most important relationship. And we don't seem to understand that until we are burned out. And in my work, it's often the case that we start from this, even though somebody comes to me with how am I going to get back to work, or what am I going to do within this environment? I don't feel it. I'm not, exactly where I want to be, and all these things. And when you start unpacking this, you realize that, okay, there is a case of burnout. And there is a case that if you're not in that position yet, you're like really heading there really, really fast, because we don't take care of ourselves. We try to do too many things. And us is definitely not the priority. And a lot of women also have this notion that if they do take care of themselves, that is a selfish thing. That is something that they shouldn't be seen doing, because that shows that they really don't care about others. But there is an oxymoron there, because if you do care about yourself, then you tend to be able to care more about others.
So it's interesting. So that mindset that you're describing, where it's it's just that self-care seems so selfish that it almost becomes irrelevant in the bigger picture of things. And so I guess what I think I'm hearing is that when somebody is a high achiever, that maybe they're already in a role where they're excelling, or they're kind of heading towards that, and it's almost like that kind of tunnel vision pushes all the other stuff aside. So self-care just becomes like it's this luxury thing that you can do if you've got time. I'm so focused on what I need to do, and I need to show up a certain way in order to catch the eye, perhaps, or to get the promotions that I need. Or is that some of what you think is happening for these women?
Very much so. And again, that is the absolute wrong way to go about something like that, especially when you are a high achiever, especially when you want to show up in a way to cut somebody's eye or to do your work in like your highest ability. And that, like, when you don't look after yourself, when you don't take that pause, it's when you are creating the worst possible scenario for yourself, because we can only, you know, be working at the highest level when we are feeling you know, energetic, and when we feel that we have enough. If you want to put it in like we often discuss it, like you know, your own cup needs to be full in order to be able to give. There is no other way to do it. If you just deplete yourself and you keep doing it, there is going to come a time when there will be no more. And that's when we see, especially high achievers, especially women, that they are feeling that unless I do like 150% all the time, I'm not going to reach where I want to go. And I'm not going to be seen, especially in this, you know, depending on which companies they work for. But like I see it mostly with women, that they are trying to fill positions that are generally predominantly male positions.
Mm-hmm.
And when they are in these really high places and you see them and you think, but you have achieved so much and you are like in the height of your career, and like the moment you close your door, you're almost, you know, like don't know what to do with what you have achieved, because you are so tired, you are
Mm.
so not with it. And it doesn't really represent what it should represent, because from the outside it looks like, oh, okay, you know, people think that you are everything, but from the inside it's a different story.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's so true. And as you were speaking, it reminded me of a conversation I had with somebody who was, you know, at the peak of her career. And yes, she was, in fact, the role that she was in had up until that point always been men. And there's a little bit about that I want to talk about in a minute. But absolutely, in the workplace, 100%, 150%, like you said, on it, getting home exhausted, tired, fed up with everything that was going on at home, relationship, the children. I mean, there were other things that needed just attention and holding. And quite frankly, it was all just falling apart. It was all just fracturing because of this, you know. But if I don't turn up and if I don't do 10 times more than he would do, in particular, or
Correct.
whatever, then I won't be respected. I won't be seen. I'll be overlooked for other things. I won't be fulfilling my potential. And actually, from my perspective, if we want to fulfill our potential, we have to do it from an overflowing cup, not even just a full cup. We need to have so much replenishing that when we are constantly outsourcing our energy, there is another level of flow coming from us. And that, for me, takes a high level of self-care. That doesn't necessarily mean loads of time, but a high level of self-care, which for me is about consistency in order to do that. But that whole point, and you touched on it there about, you know, stepping into these positions that are predominantly male roles, even that makes me feel a little bit like prehistoric. Is like, you know, this just because, well, no, because just because these roles have predominantly been male, we know in today's world, women are more than capable to step into these roles, and more so, right? We know this. And yet we still seem to be battling with this old story of, well, you know, my male counterpart could get away with this. And for me to get there, I need to 10x my efforts. Why? Why?
It is quite challenging, and we tend to challenge ourselves as women even more than our male colleagues would do. It seems as if we're trying to play catch up, and we're trying to ensure that nobody will be able to say anything that is less than what we want to show. So that creates that like almost like a completely different like approach from what you want to show and who you are, because you are showing up in positions like this as if you were a man, and that creates a huge gap for what and how we should be showing up as women, because we are women. We have different needs, we have different perspectives, and that's the whole point. Showing up in these positions as us. And that is very hard to break, because as you said, the narrative is there, and it is old, but we as women are taking too long to change it for ourselves. We have embraced it for far too long. We have been conditioned to think like this, and that's why there is, like that gap between how we show up and what we can offer. And of course, what we can offer ourselves. And then another thing I wanted to touch on, because you did mention about high level self-care. People, when you talk to them about high level self-care, they think you need to spend like 5 days in a spa. Well, that's not the case. And once you start explaining, or when they realize that it is within their own day-to-day activities that they can take those 5-minute breaks that will really replenish them, their energy and everything, it takes a lot of educating.
Yes.
To understand that when we talk about high level self-care, we just talk about little habits that can be in our everyday lives that really make a difference. But we have not learned to do any of this. We have just, if you are in a high position, you put your foot on the pedal and you don't stop.
Yeah.
But then you start spinning like 3 million plates. And yes, you're a woman and you can spin as many plates as you like, but it's not viable. And that's why we have the burnout.
Yeah, I mean, it's not sustainable. So, and I think this is that place that ends up happening, is that you do it, and yeah, I'm juggling everything, and I'm kids are all, I've got my relationship, I've got this business stuff going, I'm on track, I'm getting everything done. The fact that I've not paid any attention to myself is neither here nor there, and I'm just going to go, and I'm going to go, and I'm going to push through, keep my foot on the pedal, like you said. It is not sustainable for anyone. And I would, if anyone is listening and they can tell me otherwise, I look forward to that conversation. I have yet to meet anyone who has been able to sustain that without either damaging their health or realizing that if they don't stop those habits of push, they're going to damage their health. So, either the health thing happens or the realization happens and they start doing things differently. And I think it's really important what you were saying, that what we're talking about here, high level self-care for me, is how do we grab these micro moments throughout the course of our days to just keep on refilling. And we all need to do this. This is, in fact, whether you're in a high flying role, whether you're a high achiever, whatever your role is, it's almost kind of irrelevant. You must fill your cup. And for me, fill it to overflowing, so that you are never in that position of feeling I've got absolutely nothing left in the tank. And even if you get there, you immediately know I need to take my foot off the pedal and do something about that. That's the priority for me to move forward. And so I guess the question that I next want to ask you then is, how do we break those old habits? Because the narratives, the stories that are encouraging women to kind of still run that vein of, I must do 10 times more, I've got to show up as, those narratives are still running, and sometimes without us knowing, because they are so embedded, and they're still, in some places, they're still normalized, even though we know that this is not the right way to go. How do we start to break those? So when you're working with the women you work with, how do you help them to start shifting that perspective and kind of start to really think about their habits in a new way?
Well, I personally, I believe that every single coach has to be a little bit of a wellness coach as well,
Absolutely.
because the only way to help anyone breaking from any type of habit is to actually bring them back to the realization that they need to have this relationship with themselves, and not only allow for themselves to be able to take that break or whatever it is, find out, get educated about how they can like refill their cup every single moment in every single day, but also to help them see what that can do for their careers. So in my work, I try to work with the women and show them the possibility when they take those small steps. And also, what I tend to do is I tend to start with different types of wellness things that they can do, that they can try, test drive,
Yes.
whatever, and then hopefully one or two of those things can fit into their day, can be done, and they can also, I mean, you can see the difference really quickly. So it's not like they have to deal with this or learn something new and work with it for like all all the time and stuff. It's just that they need to take that time, 5 minutes, and within a week, usually, you can see a big difference. And they come back and they tell us about it. I also use positive intelligence, which I think it's an excellent way to bring anyone back to self
Yes.
and understand that it's just minute differences, literally minute differences, that will make a change for them, and it will stop them from the burnout and from losing the career that they want. Because sometimes, you see, they would come to me and they are like, they are in the verge of completely giving up.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be all or nothing. That is how we usually work with the women that I work with.
Yeah.
We start the balance,
Yes.
balancing things.
Yeah. And I love that you said, that actually as coaches, whatever type of coach we brand ourselves as, or we call ourselves, that there is an element of being a wellness coach in all of those things. Because anyone that we're working with, if they're not having a relationship with themselves, if they're not valuing themselves, if they're not actually seeing their worth without what it is that they do, then that's already an issue, right? If everything is tied up to, my value, my worth comes from what I do, and that's the only place where they see it coming from, that is already going to cause a set of problems. And I think also, you mentioned about the positive intelligence, and we both work with positive intelligence, and we know the impact that can have, because sometimes I feel like that is or has been the missing piece in getting those little micro habits in, because quite often, again, for me, when I work with women, it's like, yeah, great. These are some of the things that I want to go away and really bring into my day, and a week later, very quickly they're back into their old habits because they haven't really addressed the root cause, which is the beauty of positive intelligence. Root cause, because once we get the root cause unrooted, right, and
That's
we
it.
can start changing those roots, then those habits, those micro habits, become so much easier to bring on board, to start embedding. I also wanted to touch on the fact that you were saying, if you're a high achiever, high performance, you're in an environment that encourages that, and actually that may encourage you to keep your foot on the pedal. You also, in my eyes, have a responsibility for those around you and coming up behind you. What is the example that you're setting? And so when you've worked with women, what have been those conversations about, well, how do you feel you're kind of laying a foundation for those who are watching you in admiration, who want to come up behind you? Are you showing them and telling them that self-care doesn't matter, or are you actually giving them a different story to follow?
Well, it depends on how much work that woman has already done or not. But the initial discussion is about, your values. What do you want to show up as? And usually you do hear every woman saying that they want to be the role model. They want to ensure that they are laying the foundation for the newer generations to do something. And I can feel it, and it's hard. And especially because we still have these narratives. Hopefully in 20 years time we will not be talking about narratives. Women and men in any position will just be in the position as they are, and it won't really matter. But the thing is that not many women understand that if they do, burnout, then they are really missing the point in becoming these role models and in actually making the change that they want to make. So it becomes very powerful to have that first discussion and talk to them about the importance of how their own burnout is going to show for somebody else that they are looking up to them. And this is the biggest shift usually ever. Because we as women, we are more likely to move or shift if we think that what we are doing affects somebody else. More likely to do that than if you came to me and I said, well, you need to look after yourself. to actually move from that burnout area to the area where you are with ease and flow, and you can do your work the way you want to do it. You can show up the way you want to show up, and you can set the foundation for everyone else to follow, whether they are men or women. It doesn't matter, because we must really get rid of that idea that you have to be the role model for women only or whatever, because we really don't want to go from the one side to the other. We want
Absolutely.
to move and work together. That's what the whole point is, I think.
Yeah, it's the only way. It's the only way. And actually, going back to something you said earlier about coming into these positions and being the woman that we want to be, and not feeling we need to be something or someone else to fulfill that role. Because the richness, for me, the richness and the benefits come when we mesh. We have that masculine energy, we have the feminine energy, this is the blending of, this is not the one or the other of, and that actually in the blending of is where we probably become more innovative, where we get more done, and we actually all become great role models for each other, regardless of gender, regardless of all of that. Isn't that, in the ideal world, that's kind of where we want to shift towards. And I think also, again, it's this responsibility of people are watching you whether you know it or not. So if you're showing up and showing that you have to break your back in order to get this position, you can't take a minute pause for yourself. You need to turn up and be as competitive as your male colleagues are, or whatever. If you're showing those things, then you're just embedding more of those messages in. And we are definitely in a time, I'd like to believe we're already making those changes. We need to just see more of that, where we are really, we're stepping into and owning our beautiful womanhood. Why would we not want to own that? And really work with our male counterparts to create something quite brilliant for lots of other people to be able to follow. And although when I talk about self-care, I know I am particularly focusing on women because I work with women. But self-care is for everyone. So,
Absolutely.
Men also need to have self-care too. Men also have patterns and narratives that they need to set themselves free from. Those also. So all of these things have an impact, right?
For sure. But I mean, when it comes to women, I think we have the tendency of wearing too many hats. And being expected to wear too many hats, whether it is like, yes, you are, I don't know, a CEO of a company, but at the same time, you need to also look after your family. You need to also show up in a specific way within your home, so that means that there are a lot of things that need your attention. And the last one that gets your attention is yourself. Also, when you get to that stage of like really being fed up with being called left, right, and center, and I know sometimes, like I think, oh my God, if I hear my name once again, I don't know what I'm going to do. So you don't want to get to that stage, because you can't show up the right way when you are irritated, when you are like fed up, and you are irritated and fed up. You have the right to be that, because you haven't given yourself the permission to like take that step back in order to take the 2 steps forward.
Yes.
And that is the whole point.
Yeah. I love that. You haven't given yourself the permission. It's not that anybody else is forcing you. It's that you then haven't decided to, well, actually, hold on a moment. I need to do this replenishing moment. I need to do this so that I can move forward and go in. And I think something that I feel is important for women who are, kind of high performance, high achievers in those kind of roles that are super demanding. Most roles can be super demanding, but let's just say that if you're in a career or a business role that is super demanding, that requirement for self-care is elevated. It's not less, it's more. And it is not a nice to do, it is an absolute necessity, because if you do not, and you go down the poor health route, you then have to consider, how long do I now have to come out of my role in order to recover? Burnout is not a 2-week recovery thing. It's an extensive recovery period. If you have any other health challenges that come on top of that, it is an extensive recovery period. Self-care is your healthcare. It's your healthcare plan. It's the healthcare that you take when you're not seeing your doctor. And hopefully, if you're doing great self-care, you need to see them less anyway. But it's that care that you take of yourself that gives you the energy, the capacity, the focus to go off and do the brilliant things that you are absolutely here to do in the way that you truly want to do it. So it's like really just breaking those cycles of thinking that if I'm not giving 150%, if I'm not breaking my back, if I'm not jumping through hoops, then, you know, I will lose the respect and I won't be visible. You know, those things may bring you visibility, but there's a whole load of other things tied to that too.
And you know, there is also that notion that if I don't do it, who else will? And that is also a very, you know, like a big myth, basically, because every single person that we care for or that we want to be there for, they can also do whatever they need to do for themselves, whether these are our children, our husbands, our parents, our friends. So it all depends, because women that are high achievers, they have that tendency of taking on quite a lot of you know, responsibilities for other people as well, and it has nothing to do with their work. It's how they show up, because it's like by nature the high achiever does that.
Yeah.
But when and that's why it's so hard for them to let that go and to understand or accept that the world will go around even without you.
Yeah.
For 5 minutes.
Yes.
That's the thing. You
The
know?
world won't break when you take 5 minutes. It's all good.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
is so hard to actually explain
Yeah.
and also get the people to embrace it, get these women to embrace it and to understand it. So to me, that is a very you know, like one of the most important discussions that I have with my clients, because you need to you know, set boundaries, and
Yeah.
usually they don't.
Yeah.
That's the reason there is so much that is taken away from them without much given back from
Yes.
themselves or from others.
Yeah. Absolutely. And just as you were speaking there, I was thinking about positive intelligence and thinking about one of those saboteurs, which is the hyperachiever. And
Mm.
this is kind of what this is, you know, the achiever, high achiever, fantastic. All of those fantastic qualities, the ability to get things done, make decisions, all of those wonderful things that come with that. But when it goes into hyper mode, it's like there's an edge of the controller that seems to jump in there too, where I need to achieve in every single part of my life, and I need to get that same level across every bit, and I need to, you know, and really just forcing yourself to do brilliant things in all areas. And there's nothing wrong with that, providing you've put everything in place that makes that possible, which begins with your health. It begins with making sure that you've got what you need, that you are nourished and able to do those things. And that, like you said, because I think this is really important, that the people around you understand they all have roles too. You are not the full person for everything that needs to get done. You are not the source of, I must run every errand for every single person, otherwise I will lose my sense of value and worth with those people. No, we need
Now
to.
you really got it. I didn't say that, but
Yes,
yes, that's exactly what this is.
yes, yes. You've got to encourage and enable them, and don't allow people around you to be smaller than their real potential self by taking everything on yourself. That for me is something that I often see in high achievers. They're so focused on achieving so much at such a level that actually what they miss is that some of the people around them in their personal lives and their professional lives are not getting the opportunity to shine or to do their part. And yeah, and I feel like there is this, that's the bit where we kind of need to focus the energy and understand that, one, you don't need to do that. You already have value, you already have worth without your role, without your position. um and the position is fantastic, and absolutely drive it and be brilliant in your role. Don't do it at the expense of your health and well-being, because that is something that's really challenging to get back. Of course you can get it back, but that can take an awful lot of time.
Absolutely. And the other thing is that within the work environment, this shows up as not being able to delegate, or delegate and micromanage anyway, and that can be really draining, because it is not only draining for you, it's draining for the people around you. And the more you disempower the people around you, whether they are men or women, it doesn't matter, um, the more they cannot do their work to the level that they could potentially, if they were left to do it, or if they had been shown how to do it properly and then left to do
Yeah.
it. Because the clients that I have, sometimes they are like really coming to me feeling so drained because of micromanaging everybody, and they don't realize it. So delegating is a great opportunity for not only the person that delegates, but for the people around them
Yes.
to get things done, get them properly done. And I know sometimes it takes longer to delegate than to get the job done yourself. But any kind of things that need to be delegated, they're not like in one off. So it might take longer for the first time, but it won't take longer. It will take half the time for the next time, and maybe even less for the time after that.
Awesome.
So you can start realizing how important that is.
Yeah.
And of course, how you support the people around you by
Yeah.
doing this.
Absolutely. Utilizing the skills at hand, utilizing the skills,
Mm,
and giving people the opportunity to shine at the things that they do. I feel that's so important. Micromanagement for me always shows signs of distrust. Like, you just don't trust you don't trust people to get stuff done. And if they don't feel trusted, that's just demotivating. That's demotivating. Then you will never get the best work from them, because they're already demotivated. So then they
correct.
probably will do half-hearted work, which you will never be content with, which just means you micromanage even more. So it's all those cycles and circles that come up, and understanding that this is not then just about the physical self-care elements, it's your mental self-care elements that become affected and can really damage the game, can damage your game, damage the environment, and cause rifts, which then becomes the relationship element, and all of those things. There are so many
Absolutely.
things that can be impacted. And I think it is, when we put our health first, when we understand that it is foundational that our mental and physical and emotional well-being is secure, we are then in a much better position to manage people, to communicate with people, and to understand how to let people step into their own power, um, and appreciate it, not see it as, well, I should really be doing that. Just appreciating that and understanding, well, all of the things, all of that energy that you have can now be really focused into the high level things that you need to do, that are your
Absolutely.
responsibility.
Absolutely. But you said it. It's like, self-care is foundational, and it affects everything. I
Yes.
mean, okay, the career is one thing, but relationships, that's a very big one as well.
really is.
And it just trickles everywhere. That's the whole point, and that's why I think every coach needs to do self-care somehow, somewhere, like, but there's like when we're talking about mindset, these are things that we all need to bring to the table, basically,
Yes.
with all our clients, to actually serve them the right way.
Yeah.
Because it's not only about what they want, it's about what they need, that we need to be aware of.
Yes.
So
Yes, absolutely. Well, listen, every week could probably talk forever because we usually do. And
exactly.
but obviously, I'm very mindful that people will want to listen to this, but they may not have loads and loads of time to do that. So I'm going to bring us to a close. I think there's plenty there to think about. I mean, we didn't even really touch on, as a within the companies that you are in, whether what are the companies doing, what's the framework culture, because that can also impact how much you do or do not look after yourself, and understanding that if you're in a company where there are kind of restrictions or boundaries that don't really encourage self-care, that's where some of the difficult conversations need to occur in order
Absolutely.
to make changes, not just for self, but also for those coming. So we need to really kind of be aware of that too. Anyway, Evie, thank you so much. Thank you for joining me
Thank
for
you,
this
Yvonne.
conversation.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. And for those who listen, I hope that you enjoy. Again, please post any comments, any thoughts, even things that we may not have been able to touch on. We kind of want to hear all of that good stuff and really welcome your input. Thank you so much. Signing out from Midlife and Thriving.